Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we aren't just looking at another piece of television. We are looking at a seismic event.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's arguably the hour of television that really took that golden age of TV and just blew the doors off the hinges. And we have a massive stack of notes, production logs, and articles here to help us unpack it. We are diving into the Season 4 finale of Breaking Bad, the episode titled Face Off.
It really is the chapter that changed everything for the show. If you look at the architecture of the entire series, this is the keystone.
Yeah.
Because before Face Off, the show is this really tense, cat and mouse thriller. But after Face Off, it becomes a tragedy of completely Shakespearean proportions. It's that exact pivot point where the chrysalis breaks and the monster finally fully emerges.
And just to set the context for you listening, this originally aired on October 9, 2011. Which honestly feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
It really does, but the tension holds up perfectly.
It really does.
Yeah.
And our primary source material today is the detailed record of the production, the plot, and the critical reception of this specific hour. It was written and directed by the series creator himself, Vince Gilligan. And usually when the creator steps behind the camera for a finale, you know they aren't messing around.
Absolutely. Gilligan directing is always a massive signal to the audience to pay attention to the visual language. He's incredibly precise with his framing.
Right.
So our mission for this deep dive is to do more than just recap the plot. Because, let's be honest, you already know what happens. You know who blows up.
Yeah, that's not a secret anymore.
Exactly. We want to understand how it works. We want to analyze the production details behind that truly gruesome final image, dissect the strategy of the season-long chess match between Walter White and Gus Fring, and, really get into the weeds on the moral complexity of that final twist.
Because it's not just about the explosion, is it? It's about the debris field left behind in the characters' souls.
That is a great way to put it.
So let's start with the title itself, Face Off. I feel like Vince Gilligan really loves these little word games.
He does. It's a classic double entendre, and it serves as a total trap for the audience. On the surface level, Face-Off is a standard action movie trope. It suggests a confrontation, right? A duel. You have Walter White, the unstoppable force, and Gus Fring, the immovable object. They're finally facing off.
Right, it sets you up for a Western. A showdown at high noon.
Exactly. But then you get to the final 5 minutes and you realize the title is a literal, grotesque description of the injury Gus sustains. He literally has his face taken off.
It shifts from a metaphor to a medical reality in a split second. It's almost a sick joke by the writers.
It is a sick joke.
Yeah.
And it completely signals the tone. High anxiety mixed with this very dark, almost graphic novel sensibility.
Let's jump into segment 1 here, the setup. Because when things begin, Walt is not the one in charge. In fact, he's pathetic. We are picking up right where the previous hour, end times, left off. Walt is in the parking garage. He's removing the bomb from Gus's vulva.
And that context is so vital. Why is he removing the bomb? Because he failed.
Right.
He had the track set, but Gus didn't take the bait. Gus had that sixth sense, that tingle, and just walked away from the car. So Walt starts this whole thing in a position of total defeat. He is scrambling.
The imagery there is so stark. You have the vast New Mexico sky, the empty desert where he takes the bomb to disarm it. He's just a man in khakis with a bag of explosives and absolutely no plan. He asks Jesse, where does he go? Where is he vulnerable?
And this is the central conflict of the first act. Gus Fring is a ghost. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't have sloppy habits. He's surrounded by security constantly. Walt is looking for a gap in the armor, but there simply isn't one.
And because Breaking Bad loves to tighten the screws, just when they start brainstorming, the universe throws a massive wrench in the gears. Jesse gets picked up by the police.
Which is a masterstroke in writing because it completely isolates the protagonist. Jesse is interrogated by detectives regarding ricin.
Right, because the kid.
Exactly. Remember, Jesse told the doctors that Brock, the child who is currently in the ICU, might have been poisoned by ricin. This obviously flags the authorities.
So now you have a physical separation. Jesse is in a cold, fluorescent-lit interrogation room. Walt is outside, completely in the dark, desperate for information. He has lost his inside man.
And notice the contrast and power dynamics there. In the interrogation room, Jesse is terrified, but he's actually safe from Gus for the moment. Walt is technically free, but he's a sitting duck. He desperately needs a bridge to get to Jesse.
Enter Saul Goodman.
The essential pog in the machine.
Saul is the only character who can move between these worlds. He goes to the police station as Jesse's lawyer. And this is where the breakthrough happens. Jesse, despite the immense pressure from the detectives, feeds Saul the golden ticket. He tells him about a place Gus visits personally, a place that might not have the same level of security surveillance.
Casa Tranquila, the retirement home. Specifically, Gus visits Hector Salamanca.
This is the massive aha moment, and it leads to this incredible enemy of my enemy dynamic. Walt realizes he has a resource he hasn't tapped yet. He visits Hector. Now, for anyone who needs a quick refresher, Hector Salamanca hates Walter White with a burning passion.
Hates him. Walt killed Tuco, Hector's nephew. Walt is the reason the Salamanca drug-running operation fell apart. Walt represents absolutely everything Hector despises.
So why does this scene work? Why does Hector agree to help him?
Because hatred is hierarchical.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Hector hates Walt, sure, but he loathes Gus Fring. You have to remember, Gus has kept Hector alive specifically to torture him. He visits him just to taunt him with the deaths of his family members. He has turned Hector into a pet. A relic.
It's a fate worse than death for a proud cartel boss.
Exactly. So when Walt walks into that room, and you really have to notice the acting here, Bryan Cranston drops the Heisenberg act completely. He talks to Hector almost like a peer. He says, "I know you want to see me dead, but wouldn't you rather see him dead?"
It's a transaction. He's offering Hector agency. He's giving Hector the one thing Gus took away, the ability to strike back.
And Mark Margolis, the actor playing Hector, he doesn't say a single word. He can't. But if you watch his eyes in that scene, the journey from suspicion to realization to pure hateful joy, he realizes he can use Walt as the weapon to kill Gus.
It's the ultimate, the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario, but it's really more like the enemy of my enemy is my suicide bomber.
Precisely.
So the alliance is formed, which moves us perfectly into segment 2, psychological warfare, because simply knowing where Gus is isn't enough. Gus is surrounded by guards. They have to lure him in. They have to make him vulnerable.
They have to bait the hook, and the bait they choose is purely psychological. Hector requests a meeting with the DEA.
Which is absolutely unthinkable in the cartel world. No snitching is the first commandment.
That's why it's so brilliant. Gus Fring is a genius, but his paranoia is his fatal weakness. If he hears that Hector Salamanca, the old guard, the man who knows where all the bodies are buried, is at the DEA office, he has to assume the worst. He assumes Hector is finally breaking the code just to spite him.
We, the audience, get to see the actual meeting at the DEA. And it's honestly one of the funniest scenes in the entire series. You have Hank Schrader and Gomez leaning in, thinking they're about to get the confession of the century.
And Hector is just toying with them. He demands the spelling board from the nurse.
The nurse is so patient, too. She's going, row 1, A-E-I-O.
And he spells out S-U-C-K, and then M-Y, and then F-U-C.
It's juvenile, but it tells us so much about Hector. Even when he's using the DEA as a pawn, he refuses to give them anything. He keeps his honor, such as it is.
It creates a perfect information asymmetry. The DEA thinks Hector is senile and abusive. Walt and Hector know it's a trap, but Tyrus, Gus's right-hand man, is watching from the parking lot. He sees Hector leave the DEA building. He assumes Hector talked.
And Tyrus reports this directly to Gus. This is the pivot. Gus decides he has to handle this personally.
This is the fatal error. This is the hubris. A colder version of Gus, maybe the season 3 Gus, would have just sent Tyrus to the nursing home with a syringe. He would have said, "Kill the old man, I don't care."
Right. Why risk the exposure?
Because it's personal. Gus needs the satisfaction. He needs to look Hector in the eye before he dies and know that he won. He wants to be the last thing Hector sees. Walt is banking his entire life on Gus's ego in that moment.
But Gus isn't stupid. He's extremely cautious. When he arrives at Casa Tranquila, he sends Tyrus in first. Tyrus sweeps the room, and this part, honestly, I hold my breath every time I watch it. Tyrus has this complex RF detector. He's scanning the walls, the bed, the wheelchair.
And he finds nothing. This is a fascinating detail about technology versus analog methods. Tyrus is looking for bugs. He's looking for microphones or radio control detonators. He is living in a high-tech world.
But the bomb isn't high-tech.
No, not at all. It's a pipe bomb taped to the wheelchair frame. It's triggered by a percussion cap connected directly to the bell. There is no electronic signal for Tyrus to detect. It's a completely analog trap for a digital villain.
That is such a cool distinction. Tyrus is looking for a wiretap, not a stick of dynamite.
Exactly. So the room is deemed clear.
And this brings us to segment 3, the climax. The confrontation. The atmosphere in this scene is incredibly heavy. The lighting is dim. You have that classic Breaking Bad golden hour look. But it feels completely suffocating inside that room.
Vince Gilligan directs this with tremendous patience. He doesn't rush the explosion. Gus enters. He takes off his jacket. He adjusts his tie. Remember that? We'll come back to it. He sits down facing Hector.
He starts lecturing him. I decide what kind of reputation you leave behind. He's
Right.
really twisting the knife. He prepares the lethal injection. He is going to euthanize him like a sick animal.
And look at Hector. He looks frail. He looks defeated. He's trembling. He won't make eye contact. It's a performance within a performance.
And then the shift happens.
Yeah.
The exact moment Hector stops shaking.
The music completely drops out. The sound design goes silent. Hector lifts his head. And he looks Gus dead in the eye.
That look. It's pure hate, but it's also triumph. It's the first time in years he's looked at Gus as an equal or even a superior.
And then he starts ringing the bell. But it's not the usual ding. It's frantic. Just ding, 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 ding.
And the camera pans down. We follow the wire from the bell.
Down the armrest, under the seat, right to the detonator. Gus realizes it a split second too late. We see that rare crack in his mask. He screams and throws himself up, trying to escape.
And boom, the door blows off its hinges. The ceiling tiles fall. There's smoke everywhere.
Now, this is where the editing by Skip McDonald is crucial. We cut to the hallway. The chaos is settling. The fire alarm is blaring. And slowly, Gus walks out of the room.
I remember the first time I saw this, I actually stood up and yelled at my TV. I was like, no way. He's the Terminator. He survived.
That is exactly what the show wants you to feel in that split second. He steps out. He looks completely composed. He reaches up and adjusts his tie.
It's such a Gus move. Even in total chaos, he needs order.
It's muscle memory. It's the last firing synapses of a man who lived his entire life by total control. And then the camera tracks around him.
And we finally see the face-off.
They reveal
Yeah.
the entire right side of his face is gone. You can see the skull, the muscle, the teeth exposed. It's incredibly graphic. And then he collapses, dead.
Let's stop for a second and talk about the production of that shot, because it is an absolute marvel of special effects. It doesn't look like a rubber mask. It looks viscerally real.
It really does. They knew this was the defining image of the season, maybe the series. They brought in Greg Nicotero from K&B EFX. He's the special effects guru behind The Walking Dead, which was also on AMC. So they had the best gore guys in the business.
But you can't just do that with makeup, right? Because to get that cavity look, the face has to actually be missing.
Exactly. You need depth. You need to see inside the head. You can't do that with prosthetics unless you actually remove part of the actor's head, which I assume Giancarlo Esposito would have strongly objected to.
I assume so.
So they used a hybrid approach. It's a blend of practical and digital. Giancarlo wore intricate prosthetic makeup for the edges of the wound and the burn marks. They filmed the scene. Then they used CGI to digitally remove the rest of the face and map the skeletal interior onto his movements in 3D space.
So the eye socket, the jawbone that's all computer generated, but tracked perfectly to his real head movements.
It took months to render. It's a perfect marriage of old school makeup and new school tech. It earned them an Emmy nomination for visual effects, which is incredibly rare for a realistic drama. Usually those go to sci-fi or fantasy shows.
It was worth every penny. It signaled the definitive end of the Gus Fring era. The dragon wasn't just slain, he was obliterated.
And notice the symbolism. He dies adjusting his tie. He dies trying to maintain his dignity, but he is literally hollowed out.
But the hour isn't over. We've had the massive explosion, but we still have a good chunk of runtime. This brings us to segment 4, the aftermath. Because killing the king is one thing, getting away with it is another entirely.
This is the cleanup phase. Walt hears the news on the radio. Explosion at a retirement home. He breathes a sigh of relief, but he immediately shifts into tactical mode. He has to get Jesse.
Jesse is still stuck in the superlab. He's handcuffed to a pipe, cooking meth for the cartel guys who haven't heard the news yet. Walt descends into the lab. And I notice something here. This is completely different Walt. He shoots the 2 henchmen without a second of hesitation. Bam. Bam.
He's completely efficient. The hesitation we saw in season 1 where he made a list of pros and cons before killing Crazy 8, that man is gone. He kills the guards, he frees Jesse, but they can't just leave. The lab is a massive liability.
Hank knows about the industrial laundry. He is closing in fast.
So they have to burn it down. The sequence is almost ceremonial. They pour the chemicals, they wreck the expensive equipment, and the music choice here, we really have to mention it, is Freestyle by the Talvi Brothers.
It's that really fast-paced flamenco guitar track. It feels frantic but almost celebratory.
It's a caper. It's a victory lap. They are destroying the symbol of their servitude. But think about the practical implication. They are destroying their job. They are destroying the multi-million-dollar facility that made them valuable.
So they are free, but they're unemployed criminals.
Exactly. And then comes the scene that ties up the loose ends of the mystery. They are up on the hospital parking garage roof.
Right. Jesse gets the news about Brock. The boy is going to live.
And this is the key. The doctors identified the poison. It wasn't ricin.
Which is incredibly confusing for Jesse. He was 100% convinced Walt stole the ricin cigarette.
It was lily of the valley, a very common decorative plant, but the berries are highly toxic.
And Jesse says something that breaks my heart every time. He says, Gus didn't do this. Gus didn't poison him. He starts to feel deeply guilty. He realizes his motivation for killing Gus, the belief that Gus killed a child, was based on a lie.
And watch Walt in this scene. This is the absolute height of manipulation. He doesn't confess. He doesn't even blink. He pats Jesse on the shoulder and says, it had to be done. He completely validates the murder while hiding his own motivation.
He essentially gaslights him into feeling okay about it. We won, Jesse. Doesn't matter how we got here.
Which leads us directly to the final twist, segment 5, the moment that redefines the entire series.
Walt calls Skylar. The family is still in protective custody under lockdown. Skylar sees the news about the explosion. She's terrified. She asks Walt, did you do this?
And he delivers the line, I won.
Not we're safe. Not it's over. But I won.
That is the ego speaking. That is Heisenberg. But then the camera moves. We are in Walt's backyard. It's a beautiful sunny day. The camera drifts past the pool.
And it pushes in on a potted plant sitting on a patio table.
And the tag on the plant reads, Lily of the Valley.
And just like that, the floor drops out from under you.
It reveals that Walt was the one who poisoned Brock.
Let's just sit with that for a second. Walt poisoned a child, a little boy.
We really have to analyze the morality here because it is the crossing of a Rubicon. Up until this point, you could argue Walt does terrible things out of necessity. He killed Crazy 8 in self-defense. He let Jane die, which was horrible, but it was passivity. He killed the drug dealers to save Jesse.
But this was active. This was fiercely calculated.
He sought out a poison. He administered it to a child. We don't see exactly how, but likely via a juice box at school or something similar. He risked a child's life solely to manipulate Jesse's emotions. He knew Jesse would only turn on Gus if he thought Gus had hurt a kid. So Walt manufactured that scenario.
It makes Walt the villain. There's no other way to slice it. He's not the anti-hero anymore. He is the bad guy.
It completely recontextualizes the entire episode. We spent the last hour cheering for Walt to escape. We cheered when the bomb went off, but we were cheering for a monster. Walt proved he is willing to do things even Gus Fring wouldn't do. Gus had a code, Walt has none.
It's a devastating realization, and it sets the stage for the final season where there are absolutely no guardrails left.
Let's zoom out a bit to segment 6, production, cast, and music. Because this episode said goodbye to some major heavy hitters.
It was a casting bloodbath. Giancarlo Esposito as Gus, Mark Margolis as Hector, and Ray Campbell as Tyrus, all gone in one scene.
That is a huge void to fill for a television show. Gus Fring is often cited as one of the greatest TV villains of all time. Killing him off was a massive risk for the showrunners. How do you top that?
And interestingly, I read that Vince Gilligan didn't know if the show was coming back when he wrote this, right?
That's correct. During the production of Season 4, negotiations between AMC and Sony were very tense. There was a real possibility the show would be canceled, so Gilligan wrote Face Off to function as a potential series finale.
Can you imagine if the show ended right there?
It could have worked. The bad guy is dead, the protagonist won, but it leaves a very dark, unresolved note about Walt's soul with that flower shot. It would have been a cynical ending, but a complete one. Thankfully, they got renewed for the final 16 episodes.
Thankfully. We also have to talk about the music. Breaking Bad is famous for its needle drops, the specific songs they choose for pivotal moments.
The music supervision by Thomas Golubic is always on point. The use of Black by Danger Mouse and Danielle Lupi featuring Norah Jones at the very end.
Oh, it's haunting.
It's this soft, acoustic, melancholic track. It contrasts so sharply with the violence of the implications. The visual is a sunny backyard, the audio is sad, the meaning is horrific. It creates this intense cognitive dissonance in the viewer. You feel safe, but you know you aren't.
The reception for this was just, critics must have lost their minds over this episode. That takes us to segment 7, reception.
Universally acclaimed. IGN gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Seth Mann called it the perfect blend of Breaking Bad.
The AV Club gave it a straight A. TV Fanatic gave it a 4.8 out of 5.
Time Magazine's James Poniwozik called it morally searing. The Hollywood Reporter's Tim Goodman said it put the show on a path to a nearly perfect dramatic state. It wasn't just viewed as good TV, it was viewed as literature.
And the awards naturally followed.
7 Primetime Emmy nominations. including directing for Gilligan and guest actor for Mark Margolis.
Which is amazing considering he didn't speak a word of English.
Yeah.
Or a word of anything.
He acted entirely with his face in a bell. Well-deserved. And Skip McDonald won the ACE Eddie Award for Best Edited One-Hour Series, which, given the pacing of that explosion sequence, is no surprise at all.
And in the historical rankings.
It totally holds up. The Ringer in 2019 ranked Face Off as the third best episode of the entire 62-episode run. And considering Ozymandias is almost always number one, taking the bronze medal in Breaking Bad is like winning gold anywhere else.
So as we wrap up today, let's do a quick summary. We went from a man removing a bomb in a panic, desperate and alone, to a man who essentially burned down a nursing home, blew up a drug lord, poisoned a child, and walked away saying, I won.
It is the absolute completion of the metamorphosis. Vince Gilligan always pitched the show as Mr. Chips turns into Scarface. This is the exact moment the transformation is finalized. He is Scarface now.
There's one final visual detail I want to call back to. It's a small thing, but it sticks with me. When Walt is driving away from the hospital at the end.
Yes. He drives past the parking spot where Gus had left his car earlier, the Volvo station wagon.
It's still sitting there.
Yeah.
Abandoned. And hanging from the rearview mirror.
The Polos Hermanos air freshener.
It's such a ghostly image.
It's a symbol of the empire that has been left behind, or rather, conquered. The king is dead. The structure is gone.
And that leads me to my final thought for you, the listener. Walt says I won. And purely from a tactical standpoint, he did. He is alive, Gus is dead. But if we define winning as achieving safety or happiness, has he won? And with the lab gone and the boss dead, is Walt actually safe? Or has he just created a much bigger vacuum?
That's the question. He has no job, he has no money, most of it is gone. The DEA is actively investigating the fire he just started, and morally, he has completely rotted from the inside out.
He cleared the board, but now he has to live in the wreckage.
It's the very definition of a Pyrrhic victory. The cost of winning was everything that made him human.
A really provocative thought to leave you with. Next time you revisit this source material, don't just look at the explosion. Look at the lily of the valley. Look at that harmless little white flower that represents the absolute death of Walter White's conscience.
It's the most important prop in the history of the show.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care.